Okay, today's session is going to be a little different. I'm using ChatGPT because I'm using ChatGPT for something that's a little different. Okay, first a brief sort of a little intro. That is that as with any change in technology, Christians start out by railing against it, by demonizing this, say, oh, this ChatGPT it's of the devil because it's being used for X, Y, and Z. Well, you know what? My response to that is you can say the same thing about any advance in technology that relates to communication. And the one that always comes to mind to me is the printing press. Remember, the same printing press that is used to print Bibles is also used to print pornography. It was also used to print, was also used to print back in the past was also used to print the slave auction notices. For the most part, ChatGPT is agnostic. It doesn't really have a position on most world things. Okay. Now, I did ask it to write a prayer a couple times last night, and what was interesting is it used the word "we" when we pray. So so apparently it's including itself in the word "we." But today we'll take a look at the longest prayer in the Bible. That is Psalm 119. Okay, and we're going to use it to find things like the 10 most common words. Then we're going to try to find the verses that contain those 10 most common words. Okay, and we're going to have a prayer along the way. Okay, so let's open up our chat session here. Now, as you'll see here, Psalm 119 is what's called an acrostic psalm. I think it's an acrostic psalm. That's a psalm where each chapter of the psalm begins with a letter of the alphabet. Okay, a very important concept in Jewish prayer. So, the first is asking for the 10 most common words. There you go. The chapter's 176 verses. The chapter is divided into 22 sections, and each section okay, it says the chapter is divided into 22 sections. Each section starting with a successive letter of the alphabet. 10 most common words in the original Hebrew text of 119 are as follows. Law, 125 times, or 25 times. Ways, 23 times. Commandments, 22 times. Words, 19 times. Statutes, 19 times. Testimonies, appear 19 times, and precepts appears 21 times. Righteousness appears 16 times, heart appears 15 times, and truth appears 15 times. It's worth noting that the English translation of these words may vary depending on the version of the Bible we're reading. Okay, but this seems pretty good. The question is, can we actually verify this somehow? Let's try this. So what we're going to try to do here is see if we can do a search here. Psalm 119. Okay, that doesn't work. Okay, so now the question is, what verses does the word law appear in? What 25 verses does the law appear in? Okay. Let's try this one more time. Here are the verses it appears in. So not only is it list give us the verse numbers, it's actually printing out the prayer. Okay, blessed are those whose ways blameless, who walk in the law of the Lord. Open my eyes that I may behold the wondrous things out of your law. Put false ways far from me, and graciously teach me your law. Give me understanding that I may keep your law and observe with my whole heart. Verse 44, I will keep your law continually forever and ever. The insolent utterly deride me, but I do not turn away from your law. Verse 53, how indignation seizes me because of the wicked who forsake your law. Verse 55, I remember your name in the night, O Lord, and keep your law. Though the cords of the wicked ensnare me. Verse 61, I do not forget your law. Their hearts is unfeeling. Verse 70, their heart is unfeeling like fat, but I delight in your law. Verse 72, the law of your mouth is better to me than the thousands of gold pieces and silver. Let your mercy come to me, that I may believe, that I may live. For your law is my delight. The insolent have, verse 85, the insolent have dug their pitfalls for me. They do not live according to your law. Verse 92, if your law had not been my delight, I would have perished in my affliction. Verse 97, oh, how I love your law. It is my meditation all day and night. I hold my life in my hand. I hold my life in my hand continually, but I do not forget your law, Verse 113, I hate the double-minded, but I love your law. Verse 126, it is time for the Lord to act, for your law has been broken. Verse 137, my eyes shed streams of tears because people do not keep your law. Verse 142, your righteousness is forever, and your law is true. Verse 150, they draw near who persecute me with evil purpose. They are far from the law. Verse 153, look on my affliction and deliver me, for I do not forget your law. Verse 163, I hate to abhor falsehood, but I love your law. Verse 167, great peace has come to those who believe in you, believe in your law. Nothing can make them stumble. In verse 174, I long for your salvation, O Lord, your law is my delight. Let's come back over here to this now. Go over here, let's switch to Psalm 119. So here's the word. And that's a search for law. Okay. What's sort of interesting? Yeah. So the number one word, the number one word, law, appears 25 times, and look what it did. It just gave us the verses. Okay. It just gave us the verses. All right. So let's just what we do. We can spot check some of these verses, okay? So is it actually quoting a specific reference, or is it just saying, no, this is actually Okay. Hey, how you doing, Shuha? I'm actually doing a little bit of Bible study right now. Uh, I'm doing good, friend. It's very interesting. Uh, I mean, so what I st so we all know that's good for highly technical things, okay? But it's its ability to pull in, you know, things that have nothing to do with science or data analytics is pretty amazing, okay? In the Hebrew and the Christian Bible, in a book called Psalms, Psalm 119 has 176 verses, okay? So I began by asking ChatGPT to give me the 10 most common words in the Psalm 119, and it gave me this right here. It gave me the 10 words. Law being, as no surprise, law being appearing 25 times, okay? Then I said, what verses does the word law or the Hebrew word appear in? And then it gave me the list of all the verses in which the word law appears in, okay? It appears in verse 1 and all the way up to 176, okay? And I said, what Bible translation are you quoting? One of the things that's kind of interesting about ChatGPT, if you say, write a prayer about X, Y, Z, a lot of times it'll say, when we pray, okay? ChatGPT says, when we pray, you can pray this. So it's including itself in the prayer request, which is kind of interesting. But anyway, so what Bible translation are you quoting? I'm not quoting any particular translation. The original Hebrew text of Psalm 119 contains the word law 25 times. And the English translations of the Bible generally render the word as law. The verses I listed are a direct translation of the original Hebrew text. However, the wording and structure of the verses may vary depending on the translation being used. I'm not sure. Is it saying that that it's translating the Bible, or is it just pulling from sort of a translation out there? And the other thing about this, there is, when something like this first happens, the Christians get all uproared about this. Oh, X, Y, blah, blah, blah. This is from the devil and stuff like that. But you know what? This is pretty doggone impressive. I mean, you could do the same thing with the Quran. You could do the same thing with the Hebrew Bible. You could do the same thing with the New Testament. You could probably, do something like, what's the 10 most common words in the U.S. Constitution or in the U.S. Bill of Rights or something like that, okay? It just fascinates me that it could actually pull out not only the top 10 words, but the verses where those words are actually contained, okay? And if it really is translating it, this is pretty doggone interesting. Okay, so what is it saying here? However, I've been trained on large amounts of text, including biblical text, and I can generate translations of text based on patterns and structures learned from input data. In the case of verses I listed earlier, I generated a direct translation of the original Hebrew text. Interesting. So is it saying that it actually translated, it read the Hebrew text and then translated? That sure seems like what it's saying to me. If that's the case, that's absolutely amazing. That is absolutely amazing. So what are you up to today, my friend? Let's try this. Hang on a second here. Is that where you got your idea to get the one star? Still want to go see the movie today? I think so. We should probably leave like 5:45 or something like that. Well, I had kind of a curious thing happen to me the other day on YouTube. I got flagged for some potential copyright violations based on some music in the background. Well, the kicker was, as you hear now, I don't have any music in the background. But what the music was my dad was in the other room listening to some music on his on his on his iPad, and I picked it up in here, and I got flagged for the music that he was listening to. But anyway. Oh, by the way, I will put a table of contents in the in the description below. So Shaba, are you still with me, friend? Okay, see what our devotion says here. Psalm 119 is the longest chapter in the Bible. Longest chapter in the book of Psalms. It is a beautiful meditation on the value and importance of God's law. The psalmist uses various synonyms for the word law to express the many facets of God's guidance, teaching, and instruction. The word law appears 25 times in Psalm 119, and each occurrence emphasizes the crucial role that God's law plays in the life of the believer. When we hear the word law, we may think of rules and regulations that restrict our freedom and hinder our our enjoyment of life. However, the psalmist has a different perspective. To him, God's law is not a burden but a blessing. It is not a set of arbitrary rules, but a revelation of God's character and will. It is not a source of oppression, but a path of freedom and joy. You know what? This is a pretty doggone good devotion, I must say. In the first verse of Psalm 119, the psalmist declares, "Blessed are those whose way is blameless, who walk in the law of the Lord." This statement sets the tone of the entire psalm. The psalmist views the law of the Lord as a source of blessing and happiness, not a burden. He recognizes that the obedience to God's law is the way to walk blameless before God and to experience the fullness of life in God intends for us. The psalmist uses a variety of terms to describe God's law, such as word, commandments, statutes, precepts, testimonies. Each term highlights a different aspect of the revelation, God's revelation to us. For example, the term word emphasizes the communication aspect of God's law, while statutes emphasize the permanence of the stability of God's law. The psalmist also uses many verbs to describe his relationship to God's law, such as keep, meditate, delight, observe, and remember. These verbs show that the psalmist does not view God's law as a static set of rules, but as a dynamic and life-giving source of guidance and wisdom. He actively engages with God's law, meditating on it, obeying it, and delighting in it. In Psalm 119, the psalmist celebrates the many benefits of God's law. He recognizes that God's law is a is a lamp to his feet, a light to his path. That it gives him understanding and wisdom, and that it is his inheritance. That is inheritance forever, and that the source of his hope and salvation. As Christians, now look what he just says here. As Christians, we also, so is ChatGPT a Christian? What makes him think that I'm a Christian? Okay, that's an interesting question within itself. But I started teaching on Psalm 119. Of course, maybe it assumes that, first of all, it's assuming I'm even a believer. I mean, an atheist could study this devotion and understand the meaning. They may not believe it, but they would, you can certainly understand what's being said. As Christians, we also have access to God's law. As Christians, we also have access to God's law through the Bible. The Old Testament law, which as the psalmist refers to, was given to Israel as a covenant between them and God. However, Jesus Christ fulfilled the law on our behalf, and we are now under the new covenant of grace. Yet that the principles and the teachings of God's law are still relevant to and valuable to us today. They reveal God's character and will. And they guide us in living the life that honors and pleases God. may we, like the psalmist, recognize the value and beauty of God's law, and actively engage in our daily lives. You know, this is Okay, so now we got a version there. Hmm. Yeah, but why would you assume? Why would it assume that I'm a Christian? That's still the interesting question. Isn't it? I could be a Jew, right? I could be an Orthodox Jew who asks the same questions. And the answer doesn't really say anything. No, I'm not. Okay. And I think 40 minutes is enough for this session for today.